right. Welcome, everybody, to the the Daily Sit Down with the Book of Joel. As you can see, I'm sharing my screen. So we are going to do this, and hopefully they won't hit me with some nonsense like they did last time. Okay. How do I go back? Oh no. All right. Okay. There we go. All right, so now we can see it. Okay. And today we are starting with Al Jazeera. I pulled stuff from their website, took clips and stuff like that, in hopes that I don't have to appeal, because they did not like it when I was sharing my screen, in regards to it not being like original content or whatever. So I made like a slideshow just with some clippets of the articles and things like that. If I have to go back to the article to read more in depth, I will do that. I did read through them, but again, my mornings are usually really full, so it's hard to remember and stay up to date. I'm really impressed by people who can. By no means am I like a political commentator or a news person or anything like that. I am just a guy reading basically newspapers. And sharing it with you guys as I do it, trying to stay informed and up to date and not rely on like one specific media source, right? I think I've moved away also from doing like the pet corner and the garden talk and stuff. That stuff's interesting and cool and all that, but it just wasn't fitting with the show. So yeah. Ah. Let's go back. Nope. Let me decide when we start. Thank you. Okay, here we go. So, Trump embraces Pakistan tactical romance or new inner circle, by Al Jazeera. Trump hosts Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir for unprecedented White House lunch at the U.S. and Pakistan reset tie as the U.S. and Pakistan reset ties. Again, these are just little clips from it, not like the full article. We're not going to be doing that as much anymore. He referred to the deadly Abbey Gate bombing at Kabul airport in August 2021, which occurred as thousands of Afghans tried to flee following the Taliban takeover, and said the alleged perpetrator had been apprehended. A little more than 3 months later, Trump hosted Pakistan Army Chief Asmir Munir for lunch at the White House on Wednesday, the first time a U.S. president had hosted a military chief from Pakistan who isn't also the country's head of state. Munir is on a 5-day trip to the U.S. So we are dealing with an administration which changes its tune by the hour. There is no process here, Marvin Weinbaum, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, told Al Jazeera. 1 minute the U.S. has no interest, and the next minute priorities change rapidly. You're dealing with an administration that is mercurial and personalized, and you don't associate that with traditional U.S. foreign policy, he added. So the first part of this is just in reference to, they're saying that they're only bringing him over because he helped apprehend somebody that during a deadly attack on an Abbey Gate bombing in Kabul. So that's apparently why Asmin Munir is there. But people are also speculating that he's there for alternate reasons, such as Pakistan and them creating a deal to join the Iranian war. We're seeing the first few steps of like what could possibly be World War III. So Trump's lunch invite to Pakistan's army chief isn't just protocol breaking, it's protocol redefining, says Raza Ahmad Rumi, a distinguished lecturer at the City University of New York. It signals quite visibly that Pakistan is not just on Washington's radar, it's in the inner circle, at least for now. According to Trump, however, the main reason for meeting Munir was to thank him for his role in diffusing the May conflict between Pakistan and India, a confrontation that brought the region home to more than 1.6 billion people to the brink of nuclear war. Even though India is claiming that he didn't, and I'm thinking India might be correct. The reason I had him here was that I wanted to thank him for not going into the war with India, and I want to thank PM Narendra Modi as well, who just left a few days ago. We're working on a trade deal with India and Pakistan, said Trump, who is known to enjoy a warm relationship with Indian leader Modi. These two very smart people decided not to keep going with a war that could have been a nuclear war. Pakistan and India are two big nuclear powers. I was honored to meet him today, he added, referring to Munir. The conflict escalated as both sides exchanged drones for 3 days and eventually launched missiles at military targets on May 10th. It ended only after intense back-channel diplomacy, particularly involving the U.S., led to a ceasefire. Trump reiterated his role on Wednesday. I stopped the war between Pakistan and India. This man was extremely influential in stopping it from Pakistan's side. Modi from India's side, and others, he said. It demonstrated that despite its political and economic challenges, the country can outmaneuver a much bigger adversary. Ansar told Al Jazeera this had led President Trump to engage with Pakistan's traditional power centers based on core strategic interests. Okay, so basically, Al Jazeera is talking about Trump bringing over the Pakistani official to thank him for not going to war, but also to helping apprehend the guy in the Abbey attack. But we're going to move on to BBC now, and BBC is how we're authenticating footage after Israel's hospital hit, and that's basically, they didn't have any transcripts or anything like that. It was just like, go watch live footage. PBS News, White House holds news briefing as Trump considers attacking Iran directly. An Iranian missile hit the main hospital in southern Israel earlier Thursday, wounding people and causing extensive damage but no serious injuries, the medical facility said. Israeli media aired footage of blown-out windows and heavy black smoke. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz blamed Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and said the military has been instructed and knows that in order to achieve all of its goals, this man absolutely should not continue to exist. Israel, meanwhile, carried out strikes on Iran's Arak heavy water reactor, its latest attack on Iran's sprawling nuclear program. Iranian state television said that there was no radiation danger whatsoever, and the facility had been evacuated before the attack. So basically, Iran hit a hospital, and they're mad about it. And so, but like, you can't get mad that they hit your hospital when you hit other people's hospitals. You know, Gaza. Israel hit nuclear sites, Iran strikes hospital as war escalates. So this is Reuters now. Following the strike that damaged the Soroka Medical Center in Israel's southern city of Beersheba, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Tehran's tyrants would pay the full price. Israel said on Thursday it had struck Iran's Natanz and Isfahan's nuclear sites. It initially said it had also hit Bushehr, a site, I don't know how to pronounce that, I apologize, site of Iran's only functioning nuclear power plant. But a spokesperson later said it was a mistake to have said this. So they're backtracking. The potential consequences of an attack on the plant, contaminating the air and water, have long been concerns in the Gulf states. Trump has veered from proposing a swift diplomatic end to the war to suggesting that the United States might join it. On Wednesday, he said nobody knew what he would do. A day earlier, he amused on social media about killing Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, and then demanded Iran's unconditional surrender. A week of Israeli air and missile strikes against its major rival has wiped out the top echelon of Iran's military command, damaged its nuclear capabilities, and killed hundreds of people, while Iranian retaliatory strikes have killed at least 24 civilians in Israel. Closing down the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of daily global oil consumption passes, is one of the moves Iran could take. A member of the Iranian Parliament National Security Committee Presidium, Banam Sahidi, told the semi-official Mer news agency. So basically, they're thinking about closing down the Strait of Hamas, which is where 20% of the global oil consumption passes. And if they do that, that would like solidify the United States joining. And that's not meant to be like a joke about like, oh, oil. Wow, I read through all that a lot faster than I realized. So, I think what I will do now is we will stop sharing that screen and we will go back and check their websites again to see what other news articles have updated since. Okay. So Juneteenth celebrations held across the U.S. to commemorate the end of slavery. This is on pbs.org. So Juneteenth celebrates held across the U.S. to commemorate the end of slavery. Okay. And this is going to be PBS News. Okay. Juneteenth celebration unfolds across the U.S. on Thursday to mark the day in 1865 when Union soldiers brought the news of freedom to enslaved black people in Texas. The events include one in Galveston, the holiday's birthplace, where former President Joe Biden was expected. Juneteenth has been celebrated by black Americans for generations, but became more widely observed after Biden designated it a federal holiday in 2021. It is recognized at least as an observance in every state in nearly 30 states. It is recognized at least as an observance in every state, and nearly 30 states and Washington, D.C. have designated it as a permanent paid or legal holiday through legislation or executive action. On the East Coast, the Black Heritage Trial of New Hampshire orchestrated a weeks-long celebration that will culminate with a community dance and rededication of the African burying ground of Memorial Park in Portsmouth in Virginia. A ceremonial groundbreaking was held for rebuilding the First Baptist Church of Williamsburg, one of the nation's oldest black churches. The holiday to mark the end of slavery in the U.S. goes back to an order issued on June 19, 1865, as Union troops arrived in Galveston at the end of the Civil War. General Order Number 3 declared that all enslaved people in the state were free and had absolute equality. Those who planned the history tours, community discussions, and other events in New Hampshire said they wanted to highlight contradictions in the familiar narratives about the nation's founding fathers ahead of next year's 250th anniversary, on the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Although they are historically courageous, smart men, they were also human. They held people in bondage. They had children with their enslaved, said Jerry Ann Bogus, the Heritage Trials executive director. What would the story look like if the story of America was told from these black descendants? The celebration come as President Trump's administration has worked to ban diversity, equity, and inclusive initiatives, or DEI, in the federal government and remove content about black Americans' history from federal websites. Trump's travel ban on visitors from select countries has also led to bitter national debate. During his first administration, Trump issued statements each June 19th, including one that ended on Juneteenth, 2017. We honor the countless contributions made by African Americans to our nation and pledge to support America's promise as the land of the free. New Hampshire, one of the nation's whitest states, is not among those with a permanent, paid, or legal Juneteenth holiday, and Bogus said her hope that lawmakers would take action making it one is waning. I am not sure anymore given the political environment we're in, she said. I think we've taken a whole bunch of steps backwards in understanding our history, civil rights, and inclusion. Still, she hopes New Hampshire's events and those elsewhere will make a difference. It's not a divisive tool to know the truth. Knowing the truth helps us understand some of the current issues that we're going through, she said. And if spreading the truth comes with a bit of fun, all the better, she said. When we come together, when we break bread together, we enjoy music together, we learn together, we dance together. We're creating these bonds of community, she said, as much as we educate. We also want to celebrate together. Very well said. I'm gonna move my camera up here. Boom. I was sharing my screen earlier, but unfortunately, I did not prep as much content as I thought, and we kind of blew through it, and so it will not push out the content, or it'll give me a strike if I share my screen with the websites I'm using. But that was PBS, and they were talking about Juneteenth celebrations held across the U.S. to commemorate the end of slavery. Yeah, man. I mean, if you can't look back at your histories, like your country's history, and go, "Wow, we weren't as progressive as we thought we were," you're not moving forward as a people. So you definitely this sentiment is definitely correct. Though the founding fathers were smart for their time, and progressive for their time, they were also doing things like keeping people in bondage. Like she was saying, she being, where is her name again? I apologize. Jerry Ann Boggess, the Heritage Trails executive director. She was basically saying that, they were smart, and they started a good country, but like they expected everybody else to come after them to pick up those reins and develop it to what it is, right? They weren't. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. So let's go back over to Al Jazeera and see what they're talking about. So Al Jazeera, can the Israeli and Iranian economies survive a war? That's a good question. Let's find that out, or see what they're saying. The costs of war and damage done since Friday will hit both Israel and Iran. One is already in the midst of an expensive war, the other battered by years of sanctions, an expensive genocide. Moving on. As Israel and Iran carry out strikes against each other for a seventh straight day, the region is anxiously bracing for a potentially wider conflict. But question marks remain over the two sides' ability to finance a sustained war effort. I don't know why I had trouble saying that. On Friday, Israel killed several of Iran's top military commanders and nuclear scientists and damaged some of its nuclear sites. It has since damaged part of Iran's fossil fuel sector. In response, Iran has launched missile attacks at government buildings and metropolitan areas in Israel. And as we read earlier, they did strike a hospital. But Israel can't get mad at it because, they did it in Gaza. So you commit a war crime, war crimes are allowed to be committed on you. As of Thursday, the Israeli attacks have killed 240 people, while Iranian airstrikes have killed at least 24. Again, now we're seeing disproportionate deaths in an Israeli conflict. How funny. Not really. But the conflict is also costing both nations billions of dollars and could choke their economic growth and trigger concerns over long-term fiscal planning. Again, this is what the billionaires care about. So if we want war to stop, these kind of articles to us seem stupid, but to billionaires, it's this is who they're talking to, right? What are the costs of the war for Israel? Israel's prolonged military operations in Gaza since October 2023 and the recent escalation with Iran have plunged the country into the most expensive period of conflict in its history. According to a January report by the Israeli business newspaper Cataclist, the cumulative cost of the Gaza war alone has reached 250 billion shekels. That's going to be 67.5 billion US dollars, by the way, by the end of 2024. So that was only, don't even know how much more they've wasted since then, I don't think. Here we go. A June 15th report by the Israeli news outlet Ynet News, quoting a former financial aid advisor to the Israeli military chief of staff, estimated that the first 2 days of fighting with Iran alone cost Israel 5.5 billion shekels, roughly $1.45 billion. At this rate, a prolonged conflict with Iran could see Israelis surpass the end of 2024 Gaza war expenses within 7 weeks. Oh my gosh, they're just wasting money, man. Even before the current escalation with Iran, Israel had dramatically increased its defense budget amid its multiple regional conflicts and the war on Gaza. From 60 billion shekels, $17 billion in 2023, it grew to 99 billion, that's 28 billion, in 2024. Projections for 2025 suggest it could reach 118 billion shekels, $34 billion. The fact that you guys call your money shekels is cracking me up. It's such a silly name. The Ministry of Finance set a deficit ceiling of 4.9% of Israelis' gross domestic product for this fiscal year, equating to 105 billion shekels. That's $27.6 billion. Higher military spending would put that to the test. Despite a recent increase in projected tax revenues from 517 billion to 539 billion shekels, that's going to be 149 billion to 154 billion, Israeli 2025's growth forecast has been revised down from 4.3 to 3.6%. According to the business survey company Kofasi BDI, roughly 60,000 Israeli companies closed in 2024 due to manpower shortages, logistics disruptions, and subdued business sentiment. In addition, tourist arrival continued to fall short of pre-October 2023 levels. Those trends could be aggravated in the event of a full-fledged war with Iran. S&P Global Ratings issued a stark warning about the vulnerability of the Israeli economy on Tuesday. The agency stated that a continued Israeli war campaign, particularly if met with sustained and strategic Iranian response, could lead to a downgrade of Israel's credit rating from A to A-. Were that to happen, it would likely raise borrowing costs and soften investor confidence in the Israeli economy. How has Iran's fossil fuel industry been impacted? In recent days, Iran's oil exports appear to have fallen dramatically. Total Iranian crude and condensate oil exports are forecast to reduce 102,000 barrels per day in the week ending on Sunday. That's less than half of the 242,000 BPD it was averaging in exports this year, according to data from the analytics from Kepler. Critically, exports from Karg Island, from which Iran exports more than 90% of its oil, appear to have completely halted since Friday. No tankers were anchored at Karg Island on Monday, according to LSEG satellite ship tracking data. In 2025, Iran has produced an average of 3.4 million BPD of crude, according to the United States Energy Information Administration, with China appearing to be the main foreign buyer. Most of the oil Iran produces for domestic consumption. On Saturday, Iran partially suspended gas production at the South Pars gas field in the Gulf after it was hit by Israeli missiles. South Pars, which Iran shares with Qatar, is the world's biggest gas field. It produces about 80% of Iran's total gas output. For now, the extent of the damage to the South Pars field is unknown. In addition, Israel has targeted the Sahar Ray refinery outside of Tehran, as well as fuel depots around the capital. The full impact of these strikes on productions is unknown. How do sanctions against Iran play a role? Iran has faced economic sanctions from the U.S. after the Islamic Revolution and the U.S. Embassy hostage crisis in 1979, and then over its nuclear program in a bid to pressure Tehran to agree to a deal on its nuclear program. The administration of the U.S. President Barack Obama coaxed multiple major economies around the world to cut down or stop their oil purchases from Iran, using a wave of additional sanctions. Those sanctions were relaxed after Iran struck the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action deal in 2015 with the US, Russia, China, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom and the European Union. The following year, Iran exported 2.8 million BPD of petroleum products. But U.S. President Donald Trump reimposed the sanctions in 2018 during his first term as president and added more, again pressuring most other nations to stop buying Iranian crude. The result, according to the EIA, was that Tehran generated only $50 billion in oil export revenue in 2022 and 2023, which amounts to roughly 200,000 BPD of crude exports, less than 10% of 2016 levels. The upshot is that sanctions have gutted Iran's foreign exchange earnings. Iran has staved off economic collapse in part thanks to China, the main buyer of its oil, and one of the few nations still trading with Tehran. Still, the loss of revenue because of the sanctions has deprived the country of long-term economic development and has hit Tehran's ability to fix dilapidated infrastructure. President Masoud Pezeshkian has repeatedly highlighted the severity of the economic situation facing the country, stating that Tehran's situation is more challenging than during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. In March, he openly criticized that the latest round of U.S. sanctions targeting tankers carrying Iranian oil. So, what are Iran's other challenges? Iran also faces a string of other constraints: energy and water shortages, a collapsing currency, and military setbacks among its regional allies, all amplified by the sanctions. A lack of investment, declining natural gas production, and inefficient irrigation are all leading to power blackouts and water shortages. Meanwhile, the rial, Iran's currency, has shed more than 90% of its value against the dollar since the sanctions were reimposed in 2018, according to foreign exchange websites. And while the official inflation rate hovers around 40%, some Iranian experts say it is actually running at more than 50%. Precise numbers are hard to come by, says Hamaz El-Gaoud, an economic analyst at T.S. Lombard, a political research firm. But what we can say is that years of sanctions have triggered inflationary pressure, including through devaluations of the rial. In turn, that makes goods imports from abroad more expensive, Al-Gaoud told Al Jazeera. In January, the Tasnim news agency quoted the head of Iran's Institute of Labor and Social Welfare, Ibrahim Sedegafar, as saying 22 to 27% of Iranians were now below the poverty line. Unemployment is running at 9.2%. However, Iran's Supreme Assembly of Workers Representatives, which represents labor interests, estimated the true figure of people without access to subsistence-level work is far higher. What can Iran spend? According to Al-Gaoud, Tehran has a relatively small budget for military purposes. He estimated that anywhere from 3 to 5% of Iran's GDP is spent on defense, which amounts to roughly $12 billion. Tehran does have $33 billion in foreign exchange reserves as it could theoretically draw on, but Al-Gaoud said this is where Iran is on the back foot. To use reserves for short-term military conflict would cripple them over the longer term. We've seen a rally under the flag sentiment in recent days, but if Iran experiences more strikes and civilian evacuations, that could easily unwind, he said. So it's basically both of these countries are hedging, like they're just losing money, and actually neither of them can afford to be in a conflict, which is why they're trying to get superpowers involved on their behalf, such as the US and China, so that way we take on the brunt of the economic turmoil for these wars, which is exactly what they did when we went in 2001, and all the weapons of mass destruction and all that stuff. Like, Again, they're just trying to use our money and our resources to fight their wars, on either side at this point. And it's we got to stop letting them do it, man. We got to start. Don't buy into any of these like politicians or journalists and stuff like that who are now like trying to change their tune on where they stand with Israel and why we're so invested in sending Israel and Ukraine money and all this stuff. Like, they're trying to save their seats so that way they continue on as normal. Don't vote for them. Be happy they're agreeing with you now. Take away their seats. Put somebody else in those seats, because we cannot trust them to continue to speak on our behalf. Make sure you're paying attention to who you're voting for. Learn about it. And this is coming from somebody up until recently. I didn't really pay too much attention to it or any of that stuff because I didn't think anybody was listening or care, right? But no, some of the things that need to change is we need to expand the House of Representatives to actually fit the amount of people they're supposed to be representing. We need to add term limits to both Senate and House, to be honest with you. Like, Supreme Court justices should not be a lifelong term. That's insane. There should be no lifelong positions of power anywhere. We're not a monarch. We're not any of this, that, we need heavy reform, and we need people who I'm only bringing it up because it's in the news. We need the people who are willing to sign the Declaration of Independence. We need those types of mentalities currently operating within government right now. Not even just within government, within private sectors, within, like, the people who are willing to put their lives on the line to sign a document that says, no, we are independent from them and we're gonna do things the right way. We need more of those mentality people. We need the people who came together and realized that the Constitution needed to be amendable and, like, add amendments and do those things. We need the people to constantly be reviewing the amendments made to the Constitution and where the Constitution currently stands. We need constant audits of the laws that have been passed. Like, we need... Honestly, the government should be the number one employer for people, because there should be constantly people checking, like, what we're doing as a government and, like, reporting it back to the people, or, like, being those people who are the roadblocks for tyrants and corruption. The more bodies you have, the harder it becomes to hide, not less bodies. It's easier to hide when you have less people operating in government, because you can fill those positions with people who are on your side, and then you can just curate the media and all that kind of stuff to present yourself differently than what you are. We need a huge, diverse government filled with all sorts of people, because otherwise, it's, again, we're just going to be repeating the same cycle of getting your hands dirty, washing them, and getting them dirty again. Honestly, we need to get rid of the two-party system as a whole. It should be illegal to have any type of like, organization that seems like a union with any type of government officials, right? They have a union. It's called the United States. You don't need a union to protect your job. If you want to protect your job, serve the people, and we'll protect your job for you. Like, we definitely need to, like, the fact that there's so many adults in this world that need to sit down and be lectured to is insane, and nobody's willing to be the lecturer. I'll do it. I don't care. I'm not a perfect person. I, by no means, but I'll stand on the soapbox and I will hear ye, you're kind of a dick. You know what I mean? All right. But that's going to be the end of our show. I really appreciate you guys joining. For anybody who stayed for any amount of time, we do this every day at 9:30 in the morning. And we just, again, I'm going to try to plan a little bit better, because I did have a PowerPoint where I was able to show it and show you guys what I was reading and the quotes and stuff. I just didn't prepare enough content in that PowerPoint. But now I've kind of got an idea of how long 10 minutes is, and I can just triple that, right? But yeah, stay updated. Don't read one news source. Don't trust one person. Don't even trust me. And again, most of the things I'm saying are opinions, right? They're opinions based off of a lived experience within the system. So it's not an invalid opinion, and it should be shared, but it's an opinion nonetheless. support the people who say it should be this way, and not the people who say, well, it isn't that way. Because the people who say it isn't that way are doing nothing to change it, to make it to be the way it should, right? Be the it should be this way people. I shared a video of somebody who said it very, very clearly. Like, no, it should be that way, and you should be on my side, agreeing with me that it should be that way, and we should change it, and not using that. Oh well, we're not gonna be the people. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Not with that attitude, we're not, but we are the people who change the world. You, me, every single one of us who watches this and doesn't watch this. We are the ones who change the world. Have a good day, guys.